Good evening, everyone. Back again. Today we will complete the chapter of P block. So let's go to the chapter. Now in this section we will start from the group 16 elements. Now here are some notes which I have prepared, because in your NCERT it is very much congested type. Okay. So let's begin. P block elements, group 16. Okay. Now group 16 elements are also called chalcogens. Okay. Now what is the meaning of chalcogens? That means they are ore formers. Ore means they are found in mineral ore, means iron ore, like that. So they are, just a minute. So P block elements are also called chalcogens, or they are ore formers. Okay. Coming to the electronic configuration, they have an electronic configuration of NS2NP4. Okay, we know oxygen have 4 electrons in their outermost shell, right? And oxygen is an element of group 16. Let's change the color. Okay, this was the electronic configuration. Coming to atomic radii, okay, the atomic number increases, the atomic size increases down the group as we move from the top to bottom in the periodic table of the group 16. We can see there is the increase in atomic number, right? And as the atomic number increases, the number of shell also increases, right? And so hence the atomic or ionic radii also increases. This is IE, means ionization enthalpy. So as the ionization enthalpy increases, as the atomic size increases down the group, the ionization enthalpy decreases. Okay. Now EGE means the electron gain enthalpy down the group. The atomic size increases, right? The number of shell also increases. The affinity of the electron towards the nucleus also decreases. So the electron gain enthalpy becomes more positive. That means you have to supply energy becomes positive. Okay, that means you have to supply positive amount of energy to insert an electron into the shell of the group 16 elements. Okay, next is the electronegativity, the tendency to attract shared pair of electron towards itself. So down the group the electronegativity decreases. Why? Because on moving from top to bottom in the periodic table, the atomic size is increasing, right? So as the atomic size is increasing, the electronegativity decreases, because the effective nuclear charge or the force with which the nucleus will attract the electron will decrease, right? Because the size is increasing, and also the metallic character is increasing, right? Now metallic character means the metals. What will metal do? Metals are the elements which have 1, 2 or 3 electrons in their outermost shell, and they tend to lose those electrons to attain the stable electronic configuration. Now we know that on moving from top to bottom in the group, the metallic character increases, right? Like for group 15 elements, if we consider, bismuth is a metal and your nitrogen is obviously a non-metal, right? So from top to bottom the metallic character increases, or you can say the effective nuclear charge decreases. Okay, now the electron donating ability increases, right? And so the electronegativity or the attraction will also decrease down the group. Okay, now here it is a note given: the ionization enthalpy of group 16 elements is less than that of group 15 elements because of the half field stability of group 15 elements. I have mentioned it earlier, because there in group 15 element it is NS2. If you remember it, it is NS2 NP3. Okay, it is NS2 NP3, which is a half filled p orbital, which is comparatively more stable than not filled or not filled 4 orbitals. I am right, according to your Hertz rule. Next is, why is O2 a gas and sulfur a solid? O2 means oxygen and S means sulfur. Now O2 is a first element of the group 15 of the group 16 elements. Okay, now O2 shows p pi bond, right? I have told you. And do not show p pi bond as a sulfur. it has more electronegativity, it has less electronegativity, it has weak van der Waals forces, which is the main attractive forces which keeps the O2 molecules together, and here it has catenation property, which is a property of self linking of sulfur, like this sulfur, one sulfur here. Okay, now this side, this 4 sides can also get attached to other 4 sulfur. This is the catenation property which was seen in your organic chemistry when you have studied that carbon have a property of self linking, and this is called catenation. Okay, now next is that it can exist in gas in room temperature and it can exist in solid in room temperature. Now this point is not very much important. Okay, why are they called chalcogen? Because I already mentioned, because they are ore formers. Okay, now why H2O is neutral while H2S is acidic? Because H2O can be written as HOH, right, and H2S can be written as H2 and CH. There is hydrogen bonding which keeps it neutral. Okay, there is hydrogen bonding in water, and in H2S the H, okay, H2H, when you dissolve in H2O, H3O plus is given out, and so this H, okay, I'm sorry, this is not the right answer, and this H is your acidic. Okay, why is H2O a liquid and H2S is a gas? H2O can show hydrogen bonding, right, and H2O cannot show hydrogen bonding, and the bonds are weaker and the force of attraction is less, so it can exist as a gas. Okay, now H2 bonding means it can form hydrogen bonding, so it can attach to other, so it can get bonded to other water molecules, and hence it is heavier for becoming a gas, so it is a liquid state. On the other hand, there is no such hydrogen bonding which is observed in H2S, so there is weaker force of attraction between the molecules, so it can escape or remain as a gas. Okay, next is reaction with hydride. We are getting into the chemical property. So see, oxygen, which is a group 15 elements, right, okay, oxygen, which is a group 16 elements, it reacts with hydrogen to form H2O, right, we know this, which is water. Fe2S, which is the sulfur, here is the group 16 elements, it reacts with sulfuric acid to form H2S and FeSO4. Okay, now acidic nature. Okay, acidic nature, from oxygen to tellurium, atomic number increases and the atomic size increases, so the release of H plus becomes easy, hence acidity increases. Okay, now I have already said that your from top to bottom the metallic character increases, right, the non-metallic oxide are basic, right, I am writing it here. The non-metallic oxide are acidic, and the metallic oxide is basic, right, non-metallic oxide are acidic and the metallic oxide MO are your basic. I told you to consider the example of NaOH in this case. Na means sodium, which is a metal, but NaOH is a strong base. Okay, now here we know oxygen is a non-metal, right, and tellurium is a metal. So from oxygen to tellurium, the atomic number increases, the atomic size increases, the release of H plus becomes easy, because see, as the atomic size increases, the effective nuclear charge will gradually decrease, right, so the release of H plus becomes easy. Now why they are considering H plus? Because acid has the ability to release H plus in aqueous solution. H plus or H3O plus, both are same in aqueous solution, whereas if you consider a base has the property to release OH minus and accept H plus in aqueous solution. So this was the case, and I have given few examples of oxide here: monoxide, dioxide, trioxide, heptoxide and others. Okay, next is your halides. Here is the reactivity towards halides. Now see, oxygen reacting with chlorine to form OF2, O2F2 chlorine to form ClO. I have given few examples here. Okay, now comes our compound oxygen, or you can call it O2 or dioxygen, and as it is given in NCERT. Okay, now coming to the preparation portion, what happens when KClO3 is heated in presence of MnO2? Okay, NO2 is passed over Ki. I will come to that later on. Okay, now KClO3 is potassium chlorate. Now when you take potassium chloride with MnO2, we get KCl, which is the potassium chloride, and oxygen, which is collected by the downward displacement of air, okay, in water. And O3 is an oxidizing agent, right? O3 gets oxidizes other metal to give oxygen and the nascent oxygen, right? So when you take Ki plus H2O, and so here is an ionic reaction given, so it is summing up and giving this nascent oxygen, and nascent oxygen get cancelled up, and so it is giving O3 plus Ki plus H2O, giving O2 plus 2 KOH plus I2. Now thermal decomposition of metal oxide in the lower part of the chemical series, electrochemical series, also gives out oxygen. See here, AgO2 is thermally decomposed. You have to give a triangle here, which means thermal decomposition. HgO is the mercurous oxide, PbO3 is the lead oxide, and this is another one where oxygen is showing one oxidation state, right? Okay, see, in every case you getting oxygen, if you can notice, right? These are the metal which occupies the lower part of the electrochemical series. Now you cannot take sodium here because it is in the higher portion of the electrochemical series, right? Now 2H2O2 gives 2H2O and O2. Okay, this performs electrolysis. Cathode and anode is given out. Now chemical properties of oxygen. Coming to the chemical properties of oxygen. Now Ca2 plus O gives CaO P4O5. P4O2 5 molecules give P4O10. If you take this as metal, okay, keep this in mind, reaction with metal and reaction with non-metal. If you take sulfur in presence of vanadium pentoxide, this is a process for the manufacture of H2SO4. We will deal with it in the upcoming section. Just now, this is your H2SO4 preparation. Okay, so this was the case for the reactions. Then oxygen exists as a diatomic molecule, whereas your sulfur exists as a polyatomic molecule. Okay, now what is said here, they are asking why oxygen exists as a diatomic molecule and sulfur as a polyatomic molecule. Now see, S8 is polyatomic because of its larger atomic size, right? And oxygen is diatomic because of its smaller electronic size. Okay, O2 means like this. This is your O2. Okay, and sulfur is polyatomic because of its larger atomic size. Okay, oxygen, reasons why oxygen is showing anomalous properties. It is because oxygen has small atomic radii. It has very high electronegativity, it has very high ionization enthalpy, it do not have d orbital. Okay, now before coming to ozone, let's revise up to what we have done so much. Okay, we're going back. Okay, I have stated group 16 elements. Okay, I have told you about the group 16 elements. I have told you about the electronic configuration of the group 16 elements, which have the electronic configuration of NS2NP4. Okay, so 4 electrons in the outermost shell, so they will gain 2 electrons, or they can lose 4 electrons, whichever is more profitable to them. Okay, the atomic radii on going from top to bottom in the periodic table, the number of quantum shell increases and the atomic size also increases. Okay, and the ionization enthalpy on going from top to bottom in the group, the atomic size increases, and so the amount of energy required to isolate an electron from the outermost valence shell will be less, because the less effective nuclear charge it's becoming with the increase of atomic size. Now electron gain enthalpy down the group, the electron gain enthalpy becomes positive because of less effective nuclear charge, the nucleus is not able to attract electron towards itself because of the increase in size. So you need to give additionally energy from external sources, so to put an electron in the valence shell. Moving to electronegativity, it is the ability to attract shared pair. I have already mentioned. Electronegativity, down the group, the electronegativity will become decreased because the effective nuclear charge decreases and the electron donating ability increases, and also the metallic character increases. Okay, now in group 15 element, the ionization enthalpy is less as compared to group 15 element because the group 15 elements have the configuration of ns2 np3, and now p, when it has 3 electrons, it is called the half field stability of p according to Hahn's rule. Okay, half field orbital are much more stable than the non half field orbitals. Half field and full field orbitals are more stable. My next question was why O2 is a gas and sulfur is a solid. O2 is a gas because it can form p pi bond, and whereas the sulfur cannot form the p pi bond, and your oxygen is highly electronegative and sulfur electronegativity is less, and O2 has weak van der Waals force of interaction, so it can escape as a gas, whereas in sulfur it has a catenation property, so it cannot exist as a gas. Okay, so next question which is coming are why they are called chalcogen. They are called chalcogen because they are ore formers, like ferrous oxide, ferrous sulfide, like that. Okay, they are found in the ores. Now H2O is neutral while H2S is acidic. Okay, the reason behind this I have already mentioned is H2O is able to form hydrogen bonding, whereas H2S is not able to form hydrogen bonding in water. Next question is H2O is a liquid and H2S is a gas. So why H2 is a liquid? The reason is same, because H2 can have the ability to form the hydrogen bonding, and the H2S do not have the ability to form hydrogen bond because the H in H2S is acidic. Okay. Now comes to our chemical reaction portion, which is the reactivity towards hydrides. Okay. Reactivity towards hydride, we know oxygen reacts with hydrogen to form water, and ferrous sulfate reacts with H2SO4 to form FeSO4 and H2S, which is a hydrogen sulfide. Okay, now acidic nature of the hydride, I have already mentioned that from oxygen to tellurium the atomic size increases, the metallic character also increases, and we know non-metallic oxides are acidic and metallic oxides are basic, right? So the atomic size increases, so the release of H plus becomes easy, hence the acidity increases. Now reactivity towards oxide. Now see here, monoxide, dioxide, trioxides are formed, right? So here few examples are given. Okay, so reactivity towards halide, again a few examples are given here. Next is the oxygen or the dioxygen, which we know as O2. Now it is coming to the preparation of the dioxygen. Okay, for preparation we are taking KClO3, which is the potassium chlorate, we are taking in association with the MnO2, which is the manganese dioxide, in 630 to 670 to 720 Kelvin, which gives KCl and three oxygen molecules, which is collected by the downward displacement of water. Okay, here an ionic reaction is given where O2 is breaking down to O3 and a nascent oxygen, and Ki plus H2O, because it was mentioned in the question O3, what happens when O3 is placed through Ki. Okay, see, we take Ki, this is O3 breaks down into O2 and nascent oxygen, Ki plus H2O gives a nascent oxygen, right? So the nascent oxygen and the nascent oxygen cancels out, and which gives KOH and I2, right? So if we add the two reactions, we get O3 plus 2 Ki give plus H2O gives O2 plus 2 KOH plus I2. This is a method for the preparation of your oxygen. Now thermal decompositions of the metals in the lower portion of the electrochemical series also yields the formation of oxygen. Like if we take AgO, which is the Ag2O, which is the silver oxide, and if we thermally decompose it or we give heat to it, it will give 2Ag plus O2. Similarly, if we take mercuric oxide or the AgO, it will give Ag plus O2, and similarly for lead, the reaction is given here. Next, we get from H2O2, we perform the electrolysis of H2O2. It gives 2H2O2 and plus oxygen. Okay, I'm coming in just a while. Okay, so back again. I got interrupted because somebody came. Okay. So I was telling that electrolysis of hydrogen peroxide or H2O2 also gives your 2H2O2 plus oxygen. Where you perform electrolysis, you obtain hydrogen in the cathode and also oxygen in the anode. Okay. Now I have discussed about the chemical properties of oxygen and how it reacts with metals and how it reacts with non-metal. Let's pick the example of calcium oxide. Ca plus O gives Ca plus O2. Here it will be Ca plus O2 give 2CaO, and P4 plus 5O2 gives P4O10, Al plus O2 gives Al2O3, ZnS plus O2 gives ZnO plus SO2, and CO2 plus O2 gives CO2. Similarly, for non-metal, if we take SO2 plus O2 in presence of catalyst called vanadium pentoxide, which we will see just now in the preparation of sulfuric acid, we obtain SO3. And for the preparation of HCl, we get HCl plus O2 with presence of CuCl2, we obtain H2O plus 2Cl2, and with CH4 plus O2, we simply get CO2 plus H2O. And similarly for hydrocarbons, similar sort of reaction is observed. I am just underlining this because for hydrocarbon you get similar sort of reaction for all hydrocarbons. I have taken methane here and ethane here, but whenever you take, suppose you take butane, propane, decane, like that, you obtain CO2 plus H2O, and you have to balance accordingly the number of carbon and hydrogen. Okay. Next is your oxygen exists as a diatomic molecule, right? And sulfur exists as a polyatomic molecule because the atomic size of oxygen is smaller as compared to that of sulfur. Now oxygen show anomaly because anomaly means it is different from the others because of a small radii, because it has very high electronegativity, its ionization enthalpy is very high, it do not have any d orbitals. Okay, now coming to a very important compound, group 15 compound, which is your ozone. So let's see what is written here. We will go slowly, no hurry. Okay, so what is your ozone? So ozone is prepared in the Siemens ozonizer. It is a machine. Okay, Siemens ozonizer, which consists of two coaxial glass tubes. It is an apparatus rather, which consists of two coaxial glass tube coated with tin foil. Okay, and there is silent electric discharge, means there cannot be flash. Okay, you know what I mean by telling that is flash. There cannot be any sort of spark like that. There is silent electric discharge is used, and O2 is prepared in presence of electric discharge in the Siemens ozonizer. In presence of electric discharge, it gives O3, ozone. From oxygen to ozone. Now it is a endothermic reaction, and 142 kilojoule per mole is given out energy. Okay, now properties. Now let's write here properties. I forgot to mention about the properties of your ozone. Properties. Okay, so properties of ozone. It is a pale blue glass, dark blue liquid, and violet black solid. It has a characteristic smell out of O2 and O3, which is paramagnetic. This is a question. Okay, now O2 and O3. Now if we see the structure of O2, it's 1s2, 2s2, 2p4, right? And so here you can see there is a presence of unpaired electron. These two are unpaired electron, right? So it is paramagnetic. But from the MOT diagram, which means molecular orbital theory, it is observed that O2 is diamagnetic. That means there is no unpaired electron. Okay, out of O2 and O3, which is more oxidizing? Now O3, it dissociates into O2 plus nascent oxygen. Now this nascent oxygen is a strong oxidizing agent, right? So O3, because of the release of nascent oxygen, O3 is regarded as a better oxidizing agent than O2. Okay, now coming to the oxidizing power of ozone. Now let's see how ozone is oxidizing few metals. Okay, now O3 gives O2 plus 2H2 O2 and a nascent oxygen which is responsible for oxidizing the other elements. Now PbS plus O3 gives PbSO4 plus O2, Ag plus O3 gives Ag2O and O2. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so here are few examples given. Just take the example of O3. In O3 you get I2 after the oxidation, and then again you get HiO3 SnSO2 plus O2 gives SO3 and oxygen. Okay, now this oxygen, it's obvious that we were obtaining oxygen from the breakdown of ozone. So this oxygen is this, and carried forward. Okay, reducing action of ozone. So H2O2 plus O3 gives H2O plus O2. That nascent oxygen is also working here. See, only working here. This O2 is so coming out from the breakdown of ozone, right? So barium oxide plus O3 gives BaO plus O2. Okay, now ozone gives addition reaction. This is a famous reaction from the organic chemistry. If you take any sort of alkene, this is ethene, CH2 C2H6, right? This is ethene, I'm sorry, C2H2. It is shown here. If you take alkene, okay, if you take ozone, structure, some sort of structure like this is observed. Okay, now if you react it with zinc in presence of water, the bond breaks in some sort of this pattern. Okay, now see, this is, and now this is common. Okay, now this oxygen is common for all. See, H C H O, this is H C, again H, see 2H is mentioned, and here is O, and similarly from this side also H C H and again O, and this is one is O. So two molecules of HCH is formed. This is your formaldehyde. Okay, this is a formaldehyde, HCHO. Two molecules of formaldehyde is formed by the addition reaction of ethene with ozone. Okay, now how O2 is estimated quantitatively? Okay, so we perform treatment of O3 with Ki. We have performed this similar sort of experiment just a few seconds after before. Okay, we took O3, which is giving oxygen, dioxygen and nascent oxygen. We take Ki plus H2O and again nascent oxygen plus KOH. So if we add to this reaction, this nascent oxygen and this nascent oxygen get cancelled out, and we obtain O3 plus 2 Ki plus H2O, as you can see here. Okay, now here you have to remember that your borate buffer is used, and the pH is maintained to 9.2, which is the basic medium. Okay, pH. Secondly, we perform the titration of the iodine which is obtained here. Okay, we perform titration with sodium thiosulfate. Okay, this is your I2. We take sodium thiosulfate, we obtain sodium thionate, Na2S4O6 and sodium iodide. The starch is used here as an indicator. Okay, now when this substance is formed, we use starch as an indicator. Okay, now what is telling of Hg? When ozone is reacted with mercury, it loses its meniscus. Now what is meniscus? If you take water in a test tube, you obtain some sort of this, means line is not straight. If you see that the line is not straight, okay, the level of mercury or the level of water which you take in the test tube, the level is not straight. Okay, so this thing is called meniscus. This thing, this lower portion is called meniscus. Okay, let's keep, let erase this and draw a neat diagram. Stick on its color. Okay, suppose this is my test tube. Now this is the meniscus. Okay, now when Hg is reacted with O3, the nascent oxygen again reacts and from Hg2O, which is the mercurous oxide, and oxygen, which is formed by the decomposition of the ozone to oxygen and your nascent oxygen. When this ozone reacts with mercury, it loses its meniscus and tends to stick. Okay, and tends to stick to the walls of the glass of the container due to the formation of mercurous oxide. This is called the tailing of mercury, where the mercury is losing its meniscus. Okay, the meniscus gets damaged and it sticks to the wall of the container or the test tube. Okay, now here they are telling about the resonance stabilized structure of ozone or the canonical structure. This is important. Now while making this, you have to keep in mind that oxygen need to have 8 electron to attain the stability. Now see, 1 2 here 1. Okay, let's make the pen thickness a bit more. Okay, so here is 1 2 3 4 5 6. They are sharing the bonds, right? They are performing covalent bond. So if you can see here, say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. And similarly for this oxygen also, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6, this is 7 and this is 8. Similarly, while making the other also, you have to keep in mind that oxygen, it is necessary to have 8 electron, otherwise you won't get marks. I'm sorry. Bond length, it is 128 picometer. You have to memorize this. And also bond angle is 117 or 117 degrees. The shape which you see here is called angular shape. Okay, coming to the next portion, which is the simple oxides. Simple oxides are formed when oxygen combines with another element. Binary oxygen means O2. Okay, see, acidic oxide, basic oxide and amphoteric oxide. The acidic oxide is, I know non-metallic oxides are acidic, non-metallic oxides are acidic, right? So when you take non-metallic oxide like such as CO2 and H2O2, you are reacting which from H3CO3, which is the carbonic acid, which is reactive, which is acidic. I'm sorry. Now when you take SO2 plus H2O, you get H2SO3, which is also acid, which dissolves in water to give acid. Okay, similarly if you see the metallic oxides, okay, metallic oxide MgO, which is the magnesium oxide, it reacts with H2SO4 to give MgSO4 and H2O, which is a basic oxide. Okay, this is a sort of titration, which is acid base gives salt plus water. Okay, MgO is oxide and we know metallic oxides are basic oxide, right? Amphoteric oxides are oxides which have both the properties of acid and a base, right? Here Al2O3 we are taking with HCl, which is giving AlCl3 plus H2O. Now here AlCl3 is acting as a base. Okay, let's write here, it is acting as a base. And here when you take Al2O3 and NaOH is obviously a base, then this time it is acting as an acid. Okay, so Al2O3 plus 2 moles of NaOH gives AlO2 plus 2 H2O, which is the sodium element, right? Next is the compound sulfur. which is the group 16 element. Okay, now sulfur, we are coming to the properties of sulfur. Color, sulfur can be of two types. One is the rhombic alpha sulfur and other one is a monoclinic. Now these are the shape. Rhombic is a type of shape and monoclinic is also a type of shape. This is also called alpha sulfur, this is also called beta sulfur. Now colored is yellow translucent, this is yellow transparent. Melting point is some sort of this and this. Solubility, it is insoluble in water. Now rhombic sulfur is insoluble in water, but the monoclinic sulfur is also insoluble in water, but you have to keep in mind this is the differentiating point. Okay, your rhombic sulfur is soluble in carbon disulfide and alcohol and C6H6, which is the benzene, but it is insoluble in alcohol, C6H6 and also carbon disulfide. Okay, next is the stability. Okay, stability means it is stable at temperature below 96 degrees centigrade and it is unstable, which is the rhombic sulfur. Is stable at 96 degrees centigrade, below 96 degrees centigrade, and monoclinic sulfur is unstable at temperature below 96 degrees centigrade. Why 96 degrees centigrade? It is not known, because this is an experimental factor. This is known from experiment. Okay. Okay. Structure of acid. Now sulfur has two kinds of structure. Okay. This is the Packard ring like structure. See, this is the Packard ring, or you can say this is the crown of the king, crown which the king wears. Okay. Okay, this is the Packard ring like structure or the crown ring like structure. You have to memorize this, question may come. Here you have to remember that this bond angle is 107 degree. Okay, bond angle, I am writing it here, it is 107 degrees. Okay, next is the another structure which is also called the chair form structure. It is like this. Okay, you have to remember that this angle is 205 degree here. Okay, and this one is your 102 degrees. This is also called a chair form structure. Okay, now what is transition temperature? Transition temperature is the temperature at which both the crystalline form of solid sulfur can coexist in equilibrium. Okay, now 95.6 we have also studied here. 96, just now we have studied that it is 96 degree temperature. Okay, so between 96 and 96, one we means above 96 one is stable and below 96 one is unstable, right? So we are taking 96.5 at which both probably monoclinic sulfur and rhombic sulfur are both are stable at 95.6 degrees centigrade. This is the transition temperature. I repeat, the temperature at which both the crystalline forms of sulfur coexist in equilibrium is called the transition temperature. Okay, next question. What happens when sulfur is passed over concentrated H2SO4? When concentrated H2SO4, you have to remember that it is a very strong oxidizing agent. Okay, so H2SO4 gives 2 electron, 2 gives SO4 2 minus and also H2O and SO2. So the redox reaction, which is a net reaction, which is most important here. Okay, so sulfur plus concentrated H2SO4 give SO2 plus H2O. So here it is performing oxidation. So I have already mentioned that H2SO4 is a strong oxidizing agent. So sulfur is getting, so your sulfur, just a second, let's write it properly. So your sulfur gets oxidized. Okay, to SO2. Done. Now what happens when SO2 is placed over aqueous ferrous of trivalence? Okay, Now there is reduction of ferrous from Fe3 to Fe2. Now see the oxidation number is being reduced. So let's see what is happening in the reaction. So if you take FeCl3, okay, here by saying FeCl3, this 3 means that Fe is having trivalency, which is the upper valency of Fe. And if you take SO2 with, you react with in an aqueous solution, right, you get FeCl2. You can see here ferrous is getting reduced, there is reduction in the oxidation number, so Fe is getting reduced, okay, there is reduction, Fe is getting reduced, right, to FeCl2 plus HCl plus H2SO4. Let's do it properly. Okay, now here the ionic reaction is given accordingly. Next, following is the complete. The following question is given: SO2 plus MnO4 plus H2 gives SO4 Mn2 plus H4H plus. Okay, now SO2, here you have to see that the SO2 is acting as a reducing agent, it is getting reducing. Okay, now chemical properties of sulfur. This is SO2. Let's zoom out a bit. Yes. Okay, now chemical reaction of sulfur dioxide, right, this is my, let's change the color of the pen to green. Now this is my sulfur dioxide, right. Now sulfur dioxide, when you react with NaOHCl to H2SO2, okay, you get Na2SO3 plus H2O plus SO2, you get NaHSO3, which is the sodium bisulfite, I'm sorry, is SO2 plus Cl2 give SO2Cl2, I'm sorry, and SO2 plus H2S gives S plus H2O, and O2 when you take with sulfur dioxide, it in presence of vanadium pentoxide, it gives SO3. Now this is very important, I am repeating it so many times. We will study it just now in the contact process of manufacture of H2SO4. Now SO2 in presence of H2O, it gives H2SO3. Now this is a reversible process. Okay, moving on. Preparation of SO2 by the combustion process. Okay, now how SO2 is prepared by the combustion process? We take iron pyrites. Okay, iron pyrites is nothing but Fe2S2, okay, which is a kind of fuel. Perform oxidation. We perform oxidation. I'm sorry, phone has just come. Let's reject it. Okay, so if we take iron pyrites, which is the FeS2, okay, on taking FeS2 and O2, we obtain Fe2O3, which is the ferrous oxide. Okay, now here O2 is acting as an oxidant, and your FeS2 or iron pyrites is acting as a fuel. Okay. Oxidant means combustion process is anything which is burning is a combustion, right. Now when you perform burning, if you can cut oxygen supply there, then no burning can occur. So you can get fire extinguisher where there is written CO2 extinguisher, right. So when you give CO2, it cuts down, being heavy, CO2 cuts down the presence of your O2, and so in this way the fire is reduced. Okay, so this is a out of topic thing. Okay, coming back, so summarizing, when you take iron pyrites FeS2 as a fuel and O2 as an oxidant, or in the combustion process, you obtain Fe2O3 plus SO2, and 556 kilojoule of per kg energy is obtained. Now before moving to sulfuric acid, I want to revise what I have told just now. For that I am coming in just a while, just wait a few seconds.